Imagine spending 3 months applying for jobs. You get callbacks, you get interviews, you get to the final round, and then silence. No offer, no explanation, just silence. You assume it was something you said. Maybe you asked for too much money. Maybe someone else was more qualified. So you try harder, you rewrite your resume, you practice your answers, you apply again. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. In some of those cases, the decision was already made. Before the interview, before the application, before you even knew the job existed, because somewhere inside a database you have never seen and will never be allowed to see, there is a mark next to your name, and that mark is following you from job to job, company to company, year after year. This is not a theory, this is not rare, and there is a very real chance it has already happened to you. Most people think leaving a job is simple. You give notice, you say your goodbyes, you move on. What you do not see is what happens on the other side of that door after you walk out. The moment your departure is logged inside HR, a process starts. Your file gets updated, fields get filled in, and one of those fields, one that nobody ever tells you about, determines whether any company connected to your old employer will ever hire you again. It is called Rehire eligibility status. The options are simple: eligible, ineligible, or conditional, one word. That is all it takes. And here's what makes this different from anything else in your work history. It is attached to your identity, not just your name, your social security number, your employee ID. That means if you move cities, change your last name, or apply to a completely different division years later, the system still finds you. Now you might be thinking, okay, but this only affects people who got fired or did something wrong, right? Not even close. The list of reasons someone gets flagged will genuinely surprise you. Giving 2 weeks notice sounds professional, but some companies have an internal rule requiring 3 or 4 weeks. Give 1 day less than their preferred number, and the flag goes in. You did not know the rule existed. Nobody told you. It does not matter. Field a complaint through the proper channels before you left? Push back on your severance? Asked what they would say about you to future employers? All of these can result in the same outcome: a permanent mark, no warning, no appeal, and no way to even confirm it is there. Here is where most people have it wrong. They think this only blocks them from going back to one company, one employer, one job, but the reach of this mark is much wider than that, and most people only discover that fact at the worst possible moment. Think about how many companies are actually connected to each other. A brand gets acquired, a division gets spun off under a new name, a parent company owns 12 subsidiaries you have never heard of. On the surface, each one looks completely separate. Different logos, different websites, different cultures, same HR system, same flag, same outcome. You apply to what looks like a fresh opportunity at a company you have never worked for. And inside, without a single person picking up a phone, the system already knows who you are. But that is just the first way the mark travels. The second way is harder to track because it happens in conversations that were never supposed to happen. When a future employer calls your old company to verify your employment, they are legally only supposed to confirm certain things. Start date, end date, job title, that is it. But phone calls between HR professionals and recruiters do not always stay inside those lines. Would you rehire this person? 5 words, spoken informally, off the record, with no documentation, no accountability, and no legal weight. The person who asked will never put it in writing. The person who answered will never admit it happened. And you, sitting at home waiting for a callback, will never know the question was asked. You will just notice that things stop moving forward. That energy that felt real in the interview suddenly goes cold. And because you have no idea what happened behind the scenes, you do the only thing that makes sense. You blame yourself. The most painful part of this is not the flag itself. It is the timing of when people discover it. Almost nobody finds out at the beginning of a job search. They find out after months of effort, after interviews that felt promising, after references were called, after they started mentally planning what to wear on their first day. Then the process just stops. No call, no email, sometimes a generic rejection that explains nothing. And because the flag is invisible, there is nothing obvious to investigate. So people do what feels natural. They go back through every single moment of the process, looking for where they went wrong. They reanalyze every answer they gave. They wonder if they came across too confident or not confident enough. They rewrite their resume for the third time. None of that matters. The outcome was decided before the process started. The interview was real. The interest may have even been real. But somewhere in the background, before a hiring manager ever saw your name on a short list, a background check came back. And the flag was there. The interview was not the reason. It was just the part you could see. So what do you actually do if you think this has happened to you? Here is the part most people never reach, because most people never find out there is a problem to solve. But if you suspect something is off, or if you want to protect yourself before it becomes a problem, there are real steps you can take right now. Step 1. Ask directly. This surprises most people, but you are allowed to call your former employer's HR department and ask them 2 specific questions. What do you share when another company calls to verify my employment? And am I currently listed as eligible for rehire? That second question is one they are generally required to answer. Some companies will tell you immediately, others will hesitate or redirect you. But their response, whether they answer clearly or avoid the question entirely, tells you exactly what you need to know, and it tells you how to handle that employer's name going forward. Step 2. Understand that flags can be removed, but only from the inside. There is no external form to file. There is no official process you can trigger from the outside. The only way a flag gets reviewed and removed is through someone who still works there. Someone with enough standing to go to HR and formally request a review. That is why the relationships you maintain after leaving a job are not just professional courtesy. They are practical protection. A former manager who is still with the company and willing to advocate for you is the only key that opens that door. If you have a good relationship with someone who stayed, keep it, nurture it, not because you always plan to go back, but because they may one day have access to something you cannot reach on your own. Step 3. Control the information flow going forward. You cannot delete what already exists in external systems, but you do have the right to limit who gets to access new information. When you authorize a background check for a new employer, you can specify which former employers are included in that search. You do not have to give blanket access to everyone. Knowing this does not undo a flag that exists, but it lets you make strategic decisions about how your history is verified, and that matters. A few years ago, a man discovered by accident, through a conversation with someone still at his old company, that his rehire file had been marked ineligible. Not because of anything dramatic, because he used paid time off during his last 2 weeks at the company, which their internal system automatically coded as a policy violation. His manager never knew. He was never told. And for 2 full years, while he applied for jobs, wondering why certain opportunities fell apart, that flag was sitting in the system. He eventually got it removed. It required months of emails, 2 people advocating on his behalf internally, and a formal HR review. Most people never make it that far. Most people carry that mark for years without ever knowing it is there. They keep improving. They keep trying harder. They keep thinking the problem is something they can fix on their end. But the problem was never on their end. It was already decided.